The film begins with Mark, who wakes up suddenly from his sleep to the sound of his neighbor Winda calling him, telling him that something is happening. Surprisingly, he completely ignores what she's saying and goes back to sleep as if everything is normal. A little later, when he wakes up, he tries to open the window but finds it stuck. He notices a man in the building across the street standing, screaming, and banging on the window strangely, but again, he ignores the situation. He goes to get ready, gets dressed, and heads to work like every other day. He begins to notice strange things happening and feels that the whole day is off from the start because the water is shut off and even the electricity is out. The biggest shock is that the phone isn't working and there's no signal. Despite all this, he tries to keep his composure, act cool, and deal with things normally to get through his day. Suddenly, his ex-wife calls and argues with him as usual because he's late. We understand from their conversation that he is late this time for the final custody hearing for their children. This was his last chance to defend himself before the judge, and unfortunately, if he loses the case, he will lose his children forever. He tries to make it in time by any means, running to open the door, but faces an even bigger shock. The door is also stuck and won't open. He tries to explain everything that's happening to his ex-wife so she understands the situation, but suddenly the phone disconnects because the signal cuts out again. He is left unsure of how to get out of the house. Looking out the window again, he notices that all the neighbors are trapped, banging on their windows, trying to get out and calling for help. Looking closer, he sees strange people standing down in the street wearing protective suits, completely ignoring the terrified residents above. They don't understand what's happening, and no one is trying to reassure them. Mark tries to talk to his neighbor Winda, hoping she might know what's going on, and confirms she is also trapped in her house. Before she can finish speaking, he hears a very loud noise that quickly fades away. He is left unable to figure out exactly what happened until night falls. Feeling incredibly frustrated, he uses a sharp tool to try and break the door to get out of the house. He keeps trying until he injures his hand, which bleeds profusely. At that moment, a loudspeaker turns on, broadcasting a very important message. Unfortunately, the message explains nothing. It only asks people to stay calm, stating that the situation is under control and will be resolved as quickly as possible. Before Mark can fully grasp what's happening, he sees the wall in front of him being smashed, and a frantic young man named Sergei bursts through with his quiet, non-speaking younger brother, Nico. Sergei looks for any opening to escape, initially thinking the problem was isolated to his house. He is shocked to find all the neighbors are in the same situation. There's no way out, and they are in serious trouble. Shortly after, two other neighbors enter, Sally, a nurse, and Aiden, who works for the government. They learn that these two are experiencing the same thing in their homes, and their entire building is now cut off from the world, surrounded by security from all sides. It's clear that Aiden is terrified, tense, and unable to control his nerves, convinced that something dangerous is happening without their knowledge, and their lives are in peril. He is certain the government is hiding something from them. They try to find any way to contact the outside world, but unfortunately, all lines are dead. Later, another announcement comes over the loudspeaker, assuring them that a medical team has arrived, is trying to solve the problem, that everything is under control, and they have no reason to worry. Sally tries to treat the wound on Mark's hand, stitching the cut. They all remain in a state of shock, trying to understand what is happening to them. At this moment, Mark remembers Winda, an elderly woman whose voice hasn't been heard for a while, and becomes very worried about her. He decides to break her wall to check on her himself. Sergei easily breaks through the wall. As soon as they enter, they find her unconscious on the floor. They help her to her feet, and she recovers. They start observing the medical team working below, surprised that they are setting up hospital-style tents and shelters, appearing to be moving patients inside. Another announcement plays over the loudspeaker, stating there's been a gas leak and asking everyone to stay in their homes and not attempt to leave by any means. They stop Winda from smoking, fearing the place might catch fire. Despite everything being said, Aiden is convinced they are lying and that something entirely different is happening. Naturally, his words make them all anxious, unable to uncover the truth. If it really is just a gas leak and the issue is simple, why bring a medical team downstairs and quarantine the area? The situation worsens when they see staff below spraying chemicals on the ground and around the building, dragging more people inside the tents, implying they are infected with something. The biggest shock comes when one of them tries to escape, and the staff immediately shoot and kill him in seconds. They are all terrified by this sight, certain they are in the midst of a disaster, and surrender to their situation, realizing they will never get out of there. A few hours later, Sergei notices a group of staff in protective suits entering the apartments across from them. They forcibly take people, using violence and brutally beating them. Anyone who resists is killed. Mark and everyone with him are terrified, trying to find a solution to escape the staff before they reach their apartment. By chance, while brainstorming, Mark remembers he had stored some chemicals in his apartment that could help them dissolve the material sealing the door, allowing it to open. Not wanting to waste time, they quickly search for the chemicals to execute their plan. Mark begins mixing the ingredients and pours them under the door. Indeed, the material begins to dissolve on its own. Using their combined strength, they finally manage to open the door. Here arises the bigger problem. They don't know how to exit and escape the building. Suddenly, while they are talking, Winda tells them Nico has disappeared, and she doesn't know where he went. Extremely worried, they go looking for him everywhere. The boy, out of sheer terror, had gone to hide in the ventilation shaft, crawling through it until he reached the floor below. There, he witnesses a very painful and terrifying scene. He sees staff members pressuring an elderly woman to cooperate, forcing her to take a very strange injection. Immediately after, the woman starts collapsing on the floor, coughing violently. The boy decides to quickly head back up before anyone sees him. His brother hears him and tries to pull him up quickly to safety. At that exact moment, the staff spot him and forcibly drag him down. Sergei rushes to help his brother, and Mark goes with him. Chaos erupts everywhere. Sergei attacks one of them, beating him in a fit of rage until he dies. Before he can kill the second staff member, Mark stops him, seeing this as an opportunity to pressure the staff member and uncover the truth. They discover it's a woman and forcibly drag her to the apartment they are staying in. Sally and Aiden search her, finding a very strange smoke spray. Mark pressures her to talk and confess. Unfortunately, Sergei loses control, forcibly grabs her, and places her in front of the window, letting all the neighbors know he caught one of the staff members in case anyone wants to take revenge. A little while later, her radio turns on. Her colleague is shocked to learn they have taken her hostage and tries to negotiate, assuring them they are there to help and have no intention of harming them. But Mark refuses to negotiate, insisting he must know the truth before letting her go. Meanwhile, Sergei keeps screaming into the radio, threatening the staff member, telling him that if they want their colleague back, they must come get her themselves. Mark tries to calm Sergei down as much as possible and speaks gently to the woman, hoping she'll confess. She tells him her name is Hazal. When he tries to remove the helmet from her face, she becomes terrified and pulls away. He is then certain that their lives are in danger, that the government is hiding something massive, and that Hazal is trying to protect herself from them. He feels something is wrong, and they don't know what it is. Under intense pressure, she decides to tell them the truth. She explains that a very severe virus has emerged in their area, and anyone infected dies immediately. Unfortunately, the virus is airborne, and no one can control it. This is why the government cut all their communications and completely isolated them from the world, so no one would know what's happening. The government decided to abandon the entire area to protect the rest of the country, placing them under total lockdown. Even the electricity and water were shut off so they would have no options. And of course, with no communications, they can't ask for help from anyone outside, nor will anyone know what's happening to them. Even though not all of them are infected, there is a high probability they will catch the disease, and it will spread to them easily. Therefore, none of them will get out of here alive. When they ask about the symptoms, she tells them it starts with severe coughing and breathing problems, after which the infected person loses their sight completely until finally all their organs shut down and they die. She assures them that scientists are trying to find a cure and doing everything they can, but unfortunately, they haven't achieved any results yet. Naturally, when Sergei hears all this, he becomes even angrier, taking out all his rage on Hazal, trying to rip the mask off her face and forcibly taking the injection from her. Unfortunately, Mark is forced to follow through and takes the mask off her face to stop Sergei from killing her. Hazal warns them that the injection is still in the testing phase, and its results are not guaranteed. She insists they must stay in the house and surrender to the reality until the government manages to control the situation and find a solution, warning that if they go outside, they will easily catch the disease through the air. They stay put until night falls, wondering how to handle the situation. Suddenly, Hazal tries to escape, but Sergei catches her at the last second, beating her with all his might, blinded by rage. Mark tries to stop him and break up the fight, but the situation spirals out of control until Sergei accidentally hits Nico, making the boy cry out of terror, highly distressed by what is happening around him. Shortly after, they see a massive crowd of people heading towards their building, wanting to understand what's happening. They scream loudly, growing anxious as they see many people wearing protective suits, realizing a disaster is occurring and demanding an explanation for reassurance. Hazal becomes even more terrified, telling them these people cannot enter the building as they might be infected and will spread the disease even faster. Moments later, the security device at the door activates, and one of the people talks to Mark, explaining that they killed the entire team and want to know where the vaccines are. Naturally, Hazal is the only one left who knows the details. They eventually agree to barricade the door by any means and prevent those people from entering. They are terrified of them, but unfortunately the crowd insists on entering, pounding on the door and breaking the glass. Sally is accidentally injured. Sergei then throws a smoke grenade at them, forcing them away, and quickly takes Sally upstairs. Unfortunately, her wound is very serious. Hazal does everything she can to save her, but because she bled so much, she dies in their hands. They are deeply saddened by her death. Aiden cannot handle the situation because he loved her deeply. He cries and goes to sit alone. They are forced to move the body to the side and cover it with cloth. Unnoticed, Aiden disappears, taking Hazal's suit. He puts it on and goes outside, hoping to escape. As soon as the group outside sees him, they attack him, thinking he is a doctor, demanding he quickly find the cure and hand it over to them. Suddenly, a sniper shoots into the air from afar. The crowd gets scared and quickly flees. A few seconds later, Aiden is killed with a single bullet. Sergei is shocked to see a new group heading towards their building, insisting on entering, and realizes they must escape quickly. Before leaving, Mark insists on taking Hazal with him, refusing to leave her alone in such a situation. He tries to untie her hands by any means, but Sergei, unable to stand her, and not wanting her to come with them, hits Mark on the head. Mark falls to the ground, unconscious, next to her. When he wakes up, Hazal is gone. He goes looking for his group. Looking out the window, he is shocked to discover 2 staff members preparing to flood the entire area with gas to eliminate everyone. He keeps walking until he finds his group and attacks Sergei, blaming him for what he did. Blinded by rage, he strangles Sergei, attempting to kill him, until Winda arrives at the last second, stopping him and trying to calm him down as much as possible. But unfortunately, they don't manage to escape in time and start inhaling the toxic gas as it overtakes the entire building. They all run to the 2nd floor, trying to reach the roof. On the way, Mark finds Hazal's body lying on the floor. He is deeply saddened, but is forced to continue because there is no time. At that same moment, the group trying to enter the building spots Sergei, captures him, beats him, and surrounds him. He screams, begging Mark for help because he is standing right in front of him. But unfortunately, Mark decides to give him a taste of his own medicine. Just as Sergei abandoned him earlier, Mark abandons him now, walking away and leaving him without help. The 3 of them reach the roof safely, begin to breathe properly, hide in a corner, and sleep from exhaustion until morning. As soon as Mark wakes up, he starts waking Nico. Then comes the shock. They discover Winda is dead. Nico is heartbroken and cries uncontrollably. To control the situation, Mark tells him she is just sleeping, asking him to let her rest because she is tired. Now, it is just him and Nico left. He looks at the city from above and finds it completely destroyed, the disease having spread everywhere. He realizes they must leave the building as soon as possible, determined to protect Nico at any cost. He asks him to close his eyes, convincing him they are going to play a game together, carries him on his back, and starts running. All along the way, he sees bodies scattered everywhere, a terrifying sight. Finally, he manages to safely exit the building. Here comes another shock. There is not a single person on the street. Even the security and quarantine teams are gone. At that moment, they hear a grave warning. Anyone walking the streets without permission will be arrested. With no time to think, Mark quickly devises a plan, puts on a staff member's suit, takes Nico with him, and continues on his way, thinking he is now safe and no one will suspect him. Unfortunately, they encounter a man from the other building. Thinking Mark is a staff member, the man takes Nico hostage. He threatens Mark, deciding to kill Nico because the government was responsible for the death of his entire family, and he wants revenge by any means. Mark tries to explain that he is not a doctor, just an ordinary person like him, but of course, the man doesn't believe him. Nico manages to hit the man and escape at the last second. Mark gets into a fight with the man and ends up severely injured, bleeding heavily and unable to continue. They later reach an abandoned park and sit to rest for a while. Mark takes out his phone, gives it to Nico, and asks him to call his ex-wife as soon as he finds a signal. He urges Nico to leave him and run away. Although the boy doesn't want to leave him, Mark insists and forcefully convinces him. Unfortunately, a little while later, staff members capture Nico. Terrified, he faints from fear. When he wakes up, he finds himself in a quarantine-like place with many others, all children. A staff member approaches him, trying to calm him down as much as possible, promising that everything will get better and their lives will return to normal very soon. He takes out the picture of Mark and his family, looking at it, and decides to call his wife as he promised. In the final scene, we discover that the disease has spread worldwide and is completely out of control. Governments no longer know how to handle it, and the world is facing catastrophic destruction. This is the end of the film.